Are we going straight into the introductions?
6:59:30. Well, I'll start I'll say something out loud. Oops, I can't see that's 30 part. That's not gonna help. Right about now. Welcome to our Democratic gubernatorial primary town hall. Our candidates are all present and waiting. I should warn you that if you're watching the recording, skip ahead a few minutes as there's a time delay between what we say and what appears on the recording itself. So again, welcome. We're starting exactly at 7 o'clock. Welcome. Let us start off by having the candidates introduce themselves, then we'll proceed to the questions. Candidates, would you start us off, please? Excuse me 1 second, I get the names in order here. Joy Diaz, please start us off.
Oh, thank you so much, Mervin. I am so excited that everybody's here, and Rich and Inocencio, welcome. All three of us are running for governor, but it's super exciting to hear their ideas and to introduce mine as well. I am Joy Diaz. I live in Austin, Texas. I am the mother of two beautiful children who attend public schools. I am a former public school teacher, and I am in love with education. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I am the child of missionaries who worked in Mexico's garbage dumps, and they provided schools to children in those garbage dumps. And I just saw the power, the transformative power of education and what it can do to change lives. So I want to run for governor because I believe that education can change lives. And I believe a big investment in education can transform the state of Texas for the better and catapult us into the next level of excellency. Thank you so much for this time, and I am looking forward to hearing from the other candidates.
Thank you, Joy. We'll now hear from Richard Wakeland. Mr. Wakeland, please take it right ahead.
Hi, educators. My name is Rich Wakeland. My background is in engineering, and also I'm an attorney. I'm here tonight because of Joy Diaz, who was kind enough to work with me to put together this joint town hall for all of the candidates. We extended the offer to Michael Cooper as well as Beto O'Rourke, but they had conflicts that prohibited them from being able to attend. So thank you, Joy, and here we have a former teacher who is reaching out to teachers, and I think that that's important, and it should be recognized. My background is, like I said, is in engineering. I'm a licensed engineer and a licensed attorney in the state of Texas. I was a policy advisor to two of the commissioners on the Public Utility Commission from 2013 to 2018. So I have an extensive background in the electrical grid. My background in education isn't nearly as strong as Joy's is, but both of my parents, who my mother just turned 100 on February the 4th. My father is also 100 years old. Both of my parents were educators, and both of my parents received benefits under the TRS, the Teachers Retirement System of Texas. So I have a deep-rooted feeling for teachers, and I understand their importance. In fact, what I'll do is I'll clarify. My mother was a librarian, so but that falls under teaching. I think that there's certain things that we need to do for education in Texas. I think that we need to try to increase funding for the educational system, and I think that that will translate to increased teacher pay, as well as improvements in infrastructure and other resources that teachers need in order to conduct their classrooms and do what they do best. I also think that local decisions by local authorities, specifically in this case, school districts, should not be interfered with by state government unless those decisions negatively affect the health and safety of the students or the teachers. So as a, for instance, mask mandates, I don't think should be overruled by the state government if a school district and the teachers feel that it's important to have them. So that being said, I think that authority is delegated, responsibility is not. And by that, I mean the authority to make the decisions should be held by the local governing authority, in this case, school districts. And I think that educators and the school districts know what's best for education, not me. So I'm willing to listen to educators. I'm willing to listen to what they have to say. And I would try to incorporate what their needs are, what their desires are into any policies that I institute as governor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wakeland. Our next speaker is Inocencio Barrientz. I hope I got that right, sir. Thank you. Please give us your introduction.
Okay. Well, I'd like to introduce myself. It's Inocencio Barrientz, and I am born and raised here in Seguin. I left here in 1969. I got back about 4 years ago. I have been well-traveled. I was in the military for 10 active years, 3 in the National Guard. Like I said, I'm well-traveled. There's nothing else in the world that I want to travel to or see. That's why I did it when I was young. I didn't start my education right out of high school because I was not ready for it. However, I did start when I was 28, and I was working then at the telephone company, Southwestern Bell. And it took me 12 years, 10 years, 28 to 38, 10 years to get my degree in psychology. Of course, I'm not a psychologist, and I do have a degree in police science. Also a diploma in business administration with accounting as a background. I have been a licensed realtor in the state of Virginia. I have been a licensed insurance agent here in Texas. So if you ask me about insurance or real estate, I can tell you how to make investments. The thing is, education is the only thing that actually has helped me. Because if it wasn't for the education, I probably wouldn't have been much into anything. So, and I want to make sure, because I was a migrant worker, and I went all over the place, working in the fields, picking cotton, and all kinds of stuff that I don't wish on anybody. But anyhow, I did graduate. I was the first in my family to graduate from high school. In fact, I was the only one in my family to graduate from high school. I was the only one in my immediate family to graduate from college. After that, of course, both my boys have graduated from college. One of my nephews and one of my other nephews is an attorney. In fact, he's working in Austin, I believe. But anyhow, I believe it was due to me getting my education out of the way I was brought up, and it might have encouraged them and helped them along the way. So yes, I've never been a teacher. However, I used to teach them when I was living in Virginia. I used to teach the migrant workers how to speak Spanish, and so in that sense, I guess I'm a teacher. Also, I train people in kickboxing. So that's in another sense, I'm also a teacher at that. I have enjoyed my life. I love it. I love Texas, but Texas is not where it needs to be. Education has gone down. Teachers, we can't keep them because we don't pay them enough. We need to do something, and I will make sure that they get. I believe in 8 hours work for 8 hours pay, and they work hard. So one of my nieces is a teacher in Dallas right now. So I want to make sure that they all get enough so they can actually live, enjoy life, and they don't have to worry about buying supplies for their kids, for their classes and stuff. That is uncalled for. I mean, we got the funds. We can fund anything. And as far as education for college, if any child wants to go to college, I believe that they should have the opportunity. They want to go to trade school, same thing. Uh, I want to invest in everything for education because that is our future. Those young kids are our future. And unless we do something for them, Texas is going to fall short. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let's see if we can find out, give our first question here. Okay. Okay. I should introduce myself, I suppose. My name is Mervyn Ozine. I'm a teacher at Strake Jesuit College Preparatory in Houston, Texas. I have taught at the Spring Branch School District in the beginning of my career. I've been teaching now for about 45, actually 50 years, including my experience in public schools. I love what I do, and I deeply, deeply appreciate the fact you people are talking about something that's very dear to my heart, public education. My two children were educated in public schools, and they did quite well. I'm very proud of the young men, of the young woman and man I raised in the public schools. So that's what I'm all about. So, let's see what's going to happen next here. The first question is going to be for Joy, and the question simply is this. If elected, what will your top priorities for public education be?
Oh, thank you, Marvin. Yes, my children are also educated in public schools, and I am very proud of the work that their teachers are doing. But I also know that the teachers feel very desperate, very lonely in a way. They don't feel like they have allies in government. And I don't want you to feel that way, because I've been in the classroom and I know what it's like. I know the effort that you make. I know that you put your heart, your soul, not just your brains, your physical strength into it. And I want you to be rewarded. So the three things that I would love to do is, one, I need to change the way that we fund schools. Right now, the local funding needs to be changed to a statewide funding. And other states have been doing this successfully because the idea is equity. For me, the main thing is to have an equitable system where everybody has a level playing field. And so if we talk about equity, what that means is that those who have the least get the most, and those who have the most get the least. It's an equitable system, right? And we're all for that. The other thing that I would love to do is I would love to invest in teachers. Look, you are in the classroom doing this, even when you are not fairly paid, even when there's a global pandemic. You are doing this because you are passionate and committed to changing the lives of young children and even the lives of young men and women. And so what we need to do is to invest in you, not just in our buildings, not just in our Zooms and our computers, not just in the internet, although we need to invest in all of those things, but we need to invest in you, the teachers. And one way to do it is through training. Another way to do it is through your salaries. Another way to do it is through your healthcare costs. We need to invest in you. We need to make you proud of what you do. And another thing is we need to recognize your experience. I was interviewing a teacher one time and she told me, this is the only field where we're never the experts. You know, you can work for 40 years and the state always has a bright idea of that they know it best. And so, no, you are the experts. You need to tell us what you need. And lastly, but not least, we need to have a Texas Education Agency commissioner who is actually an educator, who is innovative, who is in love with children and with the future of these children, instead of a friend of the governor who is a wealthy donor. We need an educator at the very top.
Thank you very much, Joy. Our next question is for Rich. What are you going to do about teacher pay?
I just want to follow up a little bit with what Joy said before I begin that question, or answering that question. Joy, it's going to be a pleasure following you in your answers because of your knowledge of by virtue of having been an educator for 10 years. I had never heard that comment about the commissioner not being an educator. That has to change. I completely agree with you there. You are absolutely right. So now what am I going to do about teacher pay? Well, my job as governor will be to figure out ways to increase revenue that we can then pump into education. And when we do that, then I would expect that a good portion of that would go towards teacher pay. I think that the way that would work, though, would be that the individual school districts would be the ones who would decide how to distribute those money for teacher pay. The idea would be to get money to the school districts so that they could then use a good portion of that to increase teacher pay. Now, how would I do that? Well, the first thing I would do to find an additional revenue stream is I would legalize the recreational use of marijuana, and I would tax it. All right. And then I would take that tax revenue and I would turn around and pump it into Texas education. As a for instance, the state of California in last year, actually, I think it was in 2021, generated over $800 million in revenue from taxation on cannabis sales. So we may not have as many people as California does, but I think that we would see revenue in the 600 to 700 million range that we could then turn around and pump into education, the educational system. This would allow the school districts and the people that decide what teacher pay should be to increase teacher pay. It would also allow for the increasing of benefits so that the teacher's cost for benefits would be less. However, the school districts would want to distribute out that money, that increased revenue stream would be up to them. Again, I think local authority has that decision. And so that would be something that teachers or educators would work out with the school districts themselves as to how they wanted to have the money distributed, whether it would be increased in benefits or lowering costs of the benefits that they receive, or just an increase in pay. Other ways that could be, pardon me, I just had a glitch in the sound system. Other things that could be done to increase revenue, we need to look for efficiencies in government, and we need to try to cut back our expenses in other areas. So for instance, one of the things that the Republicans are advocating is, and have allocated, is a couple or $3 billion for the building of a border wall. A border wall is going to be costly and ineffective. I would prefer to use that type of money and pump it into our educational system and allow our school districts to decide how it could be used. Then if we use that money, instead of building a costly and ineffective border wall, I think we could see some real results. So increased tax associated with taxation on the legalization of recreational use of cannabis, and not spending the money on a costly and ineffective border wall, but instead pumping that money into education. I think that's probably the best way to increase teacher pay.
Thank you, Richard. Let me just try here. Okay. Inocencio,
Yeah.
the question that has been proposed to you is this: what steps would you take to increase the participation of educators in education-related policy decisions? That's the question I'd like you to tack on, please.
Okay. One, instead of just the principal and the superintendent, I would like to see the actual teachers have their input into all the decisions that are made as far as teaching goes. Another thing, equity in school systems. I believe that they can be better educated by having more teachers, smaller classes, and therefore they can get more individual attention per student. And also the way, I don't believe that every grade for every subject should be identical. I would prefer a teacher to use their own method of teaching what they need to teach in their own way and not go by some curriculum that the board has set. I'd like to see teachers teach out of the box, in other words, to make sure that people understand and learn what they're supposed to learn and not what they don't need. That's another thing. Uh, Texas, I would like to see everybody in Texas that is born in Texas uh, to be able to have education as much as they need it, or if they don't need it, or if they don't want it, that's up to them. But it'll be their choice. And as far as funding, we've got funding, like Rich said, from the border wall, which is a total waste of money. We've got plenty of funding there. We can streamline a lot, which will generate a whole lot more income. We can do a lot with in fact, we have an ethics commission right now that we can probably streamline. Um, and, Also, like Rich was saying about legalizing the medical use of marijuana, that is good. But there's other ways to expand it a little bit more and bring in maybe quadruple the income. Uh, on top of that, I mean, there's so many ways to make money in Texas that it's not even funny. Just people do not want to do it, and they haven't done it. They just go based on what everybody else tells them, and I am not for sale for anybody. If I become your governor, I'm going to work for Texas. Whatever is good for Texas is that's what I'm going to do. I plan on having a kind of like a video right now, where every month, once a month, on the same day, same time, people would be able to call me and visit with me like this video camera, and we could discuss issues that they're going through, and that if they have a solution. So as far as education, I'm all for it, 100%. And more teachers, better pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joy, this question is for you. What do you feel is the proper role of standardized testing in Texas's public education system? For instance, should student test scores be used for teacher pay, school accountability ratings, evaluating teachers, measuring the progress of students, etc.?
Thank you. Standardized testing has a role, but it should only be to show us where we are, where we're going, and where we have been. So it's a progress report, really, in essence. But what I don't want is punitive measures attached to standardized testing. We have seen, for instance, in previous years that the Texas Education Agency has tried to close school districts. What do we achieve if we close a school district? Really nothing, except for the demise of some towns, the loss of jobs of some people, and the loss of the community center for a community. Children need to be educated where they are, where they live. So what we need to do is to use standardized testing as a guide to tell us where we are falling short. And where we're falling short is where we need to invest. That should be our guide for investment, not our guide for shutting down places, not our guide for punishing teachers, not our guide for punishing students. The idea is not to punish. The idea is to pull us into the future. And we cannot do that by shortchanging our students and by shortchanging our teachers and by closing down school districts. We need to invest. But yes, we need tests to know where we are, definitely as a guide. Where are we? Where are we going? That should be the purpose of those tests. Not for the state to invest $90 million, for instance. We need to be flexible. During COVID, we were still doing standardized testing, $90 million. What for? What did it show us? That we were in the middle of a pandemic and our children were terrified and suffering? That's the only thing it showed us. $90 million for that, I could have told you that, So we need to better target our investment. If we use testing, we need to use it just to tell us where we're going and where we have been, but not as a punitive measure, never as a punitive measure, always to tell us, like the doctor would say, this is where you're falling short, this is what you need to do.
Thank you very much, Joy. A question for Rich. How important do you think 4-H programs are for our public schools?
Wow. I want to second what Joy had to say about standardized testing. I think the STARS testing provides us an ability to see where our students are and to compare that with where they were. But I don't think that it should be used as a measuring stick, one against the other or teacher against teacher. And I certainly don't think that performance on STARS testing should be reflected in teacher pay. I think that is a serious mistake. But now 4-H, wow. I think that 4-H programs are fantastic. I think that the 4-H, my basic understanding of the way that the 4-H programs work, and I did not participate in 4-H when I was in school, but I had a lot of friends who did, and my understanding of the way that 4-H works is it's a nonprofit organization of universities that put together these programs in agriculture, in nursing, in STEM programs, and in other programs too. I think there's music programs as well. They're involved. I think that the 4-H programs are an excellent example of how we can leverage the community. Because this is money that is being spent by the contributions that are being made into 4-H, and these are benefits that the students that participate in 4-H programs obtain, and it doesn't cost tax dollars. It doesn't increase ad valorem taxes. It frees up more money for teacher pay because we have these extracurricular activities that students can participate in. So I'm a big supporter of 4-H programs because what the benefits that I think that it provides for students in our rural communities as well as in our urban environment, because it allows students to focus on these interests that they have that are outside of school. And I think that that's very valuable, particularly because it doesn't cost us anything to do it. This is a generous effort by the 4-H program itself. So I'm a strong supporter of 4-H. I think we need to find ways to increase its reach in the schools, and I think that we need to look at the 4-H program to see, are there other ways that we can implement its framework to benefit our students in our schools in Texas.
Thank you very much. This question is for Inocencio. Again, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with that. What do you believe is the proper role of virtual education within the public education system? Do you believe full-time virtual education should be expanded? And if so, under what circumstances?
Virtual education, okay. I'm not a computer guy. I'm not a computer whiz. In fact, I had a hard time logging on. So as far as virtual education, I think it's good for a lot of kids because my grandson, I mean, they're all into it, and I mean, they can work miracles with the computers, and I'm glad because that means that we're moving to a different century and different learning. Uh, I think it's great, and I think we need to invest in that. However, I do believe that they still need in-class meetings, uh, twice a week in class, 3 days a week out of class. That's fine. Just like in any job that you get, virtual uh, home office. A lot of people do that now, and that's a good way to save money, better educate kids, and I mean they're going to learn so much more. I think by using their computers and the virtual worlds, when they go to inventing stuff, science. I would definitely like to see more kids go into science, um, inventing stuff. Engineering. Um, I wouldn't doubt it if pretty soon we might be able to. When I was coming up, the first computer I had was an IBM computer. It didn't do nothing. It just turned on. And I'm going, and I paid. I paid a lot of money for it. And I'm going, this is crazy. I mean, nowadays, I mean, you get computers and the cost is down and everything. So I was thinking the other day, kids, some kid that becomes a scientist is going to, cure cancer. They're going to do all that. But we need to educate them. We need to push them in the right direction. And they're going to invent the flying cars, which is going to cut out on a lot on the highway system. Uh, we need to invest in the future. And yeah, virtual education, I believe in it 100%. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Joy, the question is now for you. What do you feel should be the state's role versus the role of school districts or individual educators in decisions about public school curriculum and instructional materials?
Thank you. If I can just comment a little bit on the virtual education, we see that the pandemic is sort of like a palate cleansing for some things, right? We do need to invest in virtual education because we have seen that it's good for emergencies and it's good for certain children. Definitely doesn't replace in-person learning, but for some situations, it's really good. I know that children who are actors rely heavily on virtual education. I know children who have accidents and need to be hospitalized for long periods of time can rely on virtual education. So let's not set it aside, but let's not make it the responsibility of the classroom teacher because it's impossible, the burdens that we're putting on our teachers. You cannot be teaching virtually and in person at the same time, or something suffers. So it's important that we understand that we need to have some clear responsibilities when it comes to virtual and to in person. But speaking about the responsibilities of local versus state, it is very important to have a state curriculum because we need to know where we're going and where we are. That is very important. But yes, creativity of individual teachers is a treasure. So we need to foster that. We definitely need a state curriculum, and we need a state curriculum that is innovative, that talks about where we have been, our history, that teaches us math, because math is such a key for everything we do. A lot of children are scared of math, and we need to remove that fear. Math is for everyone and it's everywhere. I tell children that when I was in radio, math is something that I needed all the time. If I needed to do a 30-second spot, I needed to know what 30 seconds meant. If I needed to do a minute 20, I needed to know what 120 meant, and how to subtract and how to add and how to multiply and how to divide. So math is very important. We need to invest there, but we also need to invest in teaching our children about biology and about anatomy. We study frogs and we study all sorts of animals, and we cannot talk about our own bodies in school. What is going on? We need to teach our children how our bodies work. They're miraculous, beautifully done. I don't want to call us a machine, but it's just this beautiful thing that we have. And we need to call it by its name and teach children what it's good for, what it's not good for, how it works. And we need to teach our history. So when it comes to local control for education versus state, we need a state curriculum and we need the magical input of teachers who are very creative and who can take us into the next level. Both are needed.
Thank you very much, Joy. This question is for Rich. There was something on your website about how you would bring more water to Amarillo. What do you mean by that?
Wow. Okay, I don't know how education related that is, but I'll address that. I do want to follow up again.
Without water, there cannot be education, Rich.
That's right. That's exactly right. But I do want to follow up on Joy said, what Joy said, and again, it is a pleasure to follow Joy. All right. I think that she's spot on when she talks about the state needing to have established a baseline of curriculum. And I also think that she's spot on when she talks about latitude needs to be given to the educators in the classroom, because the educators in the classroom are dealing with individual students that have individual needs, and they're the ones who know best how to apply that. So, and Joy, I hope I I captured what you were saying as well, but I completely agree with her. And so I'm very fortunate to be following an educator in this discussion. Now, in terms of water, yes, I actually do propose that water be brought into the state. We have a serious need for water, particularly in the Panhandle and around the Amarillo and Lubbock area underneath the Ogallala Aquifer. Our farming and ranching community up there, and maybe this ties in with the 4-H question, our farming and ranching community up there needs water badly. And so one of the things that I propose is that we create a water pipeline to bring a lot of water into the Panhandle. And I'm looking for an education angle on that, but other than to say that it will obviously be a large scale project, and we'll need a whole lot of people that have a good strong background in engineering and science and in construction, and we need the education system to be able to support that. I'm not exactly sure what else there is. But yes, I do advocate that the water would come from Louisiana, where they have ample water, and in exchange we would send renewable energy from Texas to Louisiana, where they don't have a whole lot of renewable energy. So it would be an exchange of natural resources.
Thank you very much. This question is for Inocencio. Again, I apologize. The COVID-19 pandemic and additional instructional support needed to remediate students' learning losses have placed additional strain on public schools' staffing needs. How would you work to ensure classrooms are appropriately staffed, teacher workloads are manageable, and planning time is not sacrificed amid these challenges?
As far as okay, I know a lot of teachers have not. In fact, a lot of them have not gone back to classes, and if and when they do, and I would encourage by increasing their pay for one. A lot of teachers are leaving because of the pay and what they have to go through. So increasing their pay and, like I said, more smaller classrooms uh, and more teachers, and that would probably bring a lot of teachers back. Now, the state has not done anything as far as COVID. Um, they really haven't. They haven't done anything to get Texas back working 100%. And they can do that in a matter of 2 weeks if they wanted to. As far as I'm concerned, they don't want people to go back to work. And businesses know, the state knows that if they want to go ahead and get the teachers back and get everybody going back the way it should be, uh, I know a lot of people hate mandates, but vaccines have to be a state mandate. And I'm 100% for that. There's too many people going around there dying for no reason. And, it affects everybody, especially the schools. Kids can't even go to school anymore because of that. So until we get the people on board and have them all join in and get their mandatory shots, we're going to have a problem. But the governor doesn't want to do anything about that because I guess he's afraid of backlash or whatever. I'm not afraid of backlash. I'll do what it takes to get Texas where it's supposed to be, and so we can move forward. There's no reason for us not to move forward in a much better way than we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next question is for Joy. Joy, healthcare costs for educators have increased dramatically and outpaced the state's contributions, with many current and retired educators now paying more out of pocket than their counterparts in other states or in other professions. How would you address this crisis to ensure that active and retired educators have access to affordable health care?
Wow, thank you. Yes, one of the things that I like to tell people is that we live in a very wealthy state. We're always telling people how wealthy we are. We're always telling other governments that if we were a country, we would be among the top 10 economies. We're always saying that. So for me, it is a disgrace that we have been so stingy when it comes to our educators. It's a disgrace that we've been so stingy with education in general. It's a disgrace that we are stingy when it comes to healthcare. But I'm going to tell you something. The state is not even paying its fair share when it comes to your healthcare. And you know that. You are getting the worst kind of healthcare that there is. My sister-in-law is an administrator for a school, and her costs are out of the roof when it comes to visits for her children, when it comes to, CAT scans. It is ridiculous that we expect educators to pay as much. And let me tell you something. When you live in one of the richest states in the world, so to me, it's like if we were in outer space and we were looking at Texas, we would look at a golden nugget, right? That's how wealthy we are. And if we think about the state as though it has certain responsibilities for taking care of us, I think about it as if it were my family. If it were my dad, who is filthy rich and is not giving me health care, that is a disgrace. If it were my dad and it's not giving me the education that I deserve, that is immoral, right? So that is what we're facing with the state of Texas, is we are in a very wealthy state that is disrespecting you as a teacher, and your healthcare is paying the price, and it's not even good healthcare. So we need to change that. I am not a stingy person. I don't like to waste resources either, because I'm not a wealthy person. I am not into waste. I'm not going to be wasting the resources of the state, but I will be investing in what matters. And what matters is educators and a lot of other people. But what matters in this conversation is educators. Your healthcare needs to be top of the line, and you need to be paying the least amount, and the state needs to increase its responsibilities because it's doing the bare minimum. The bare minimum is a disrespect to you, and I'm not going to stand for that.
Thank you very much. The next question is for Rich. If you are elected, would you be willing to spend some time as a guest teacher in schools around the state?
I would, but again, I want to reiterate what Joy just said. If I wasn't running in this election, I think without a doubt, I would be voting for Joy. All right. If you viewers don't recognize the passion and her knowledge in these areas about education, then you're not paying attention, because she's obviously got it, and she's head and shoulders above all the other candidates. Again, like I said, I would vote for myself because I'm in the election. But if I wasn't, there's not a doubt in my mind I would be voting for Joy Diaz before I'd be voting for Beto O'Rourke or Michael Cooper.
That's a very kind vote of confidence. Thank you, Rich.
So now, I guess back to my question, Mervyn, if you could remind me of
Sure.
what it was.
If you're elected, would you be willing to spend some time as a guest teacher in schools around the state?
Sure. I hadn't thought about it, but I'm happy to do that. I would be willing to commit. I would be willing to commit 1 hour a week in the schools during the school year. I would want the summers off. But yes, absolutely, I would. And I would just ask that kind consideration be given to me, so that the areas of my expertise and background would be utilized, and I would be kept away from the areas where I don't have the background. For instance, like I probably wouldn't be a very good art teacher, and I know I wouldn't be a very good band instructor. And but in areas where I do have a background and I do feel comfortable, then I would be happy to contribute an hour per week at schools around the state. And I wouldn't just limit it to high schools. I would go all the way down into grammar school. So yes, I would be happy to do that.
Thank you. Our next question is for Inocencio again, please.
Okay.
Do you believe the teacher retirement system, TRS, should be maintained as a traditionally defined benefit pension plan for all future, current and retired educators, or do you support converting TRS to a defined contribution plan that's more like a 401k plan, in which future benefits are not guaranteed?
That's a hard one. Uh, I believe in retirement, and I believe that even though you're retired, there should be an increase in retirement pay. The way the cost of living is going, I believe that retirement should just as well get an increase in pay. Right now, a lot of people that are living in retirement cannot afford to pay their taxes. Um, so basically, in Texas, you never own a home because you can lose it any day for taxing purposes. Eminent domain taxes, Texas has always been one that wants to take away land from people. And therefore, as far as retirement, I would increase it just, cost of living expense and add it on to the teachers. They deserve it. They earned it. They worked it. And as long as they can collect it, hey, I'm all for it. And like I said, just increase it. Don't leave it. Don't leave it alone. And it's up to them if they want to invest it in part of it into a 401k, then they should be given the choice. It's not for us to make the choice for them. Uh, Teachers are very smart people. They can decide for themselves if they want to take some of the money out and invest it into a 401k or however they deem to invest. But yeah, they should definitely keep getting increases in their pay and their pensions.
Okay, let's see. All right, the next question. Thank you, sir. This question is for Joy. State law allows educators and other public employees to voluntarily choose to join professional associations like ATPE and have membership dues deducted from their paychecks at no cost to taxpayers. Do you support or oppose letting public employees use payroll deduction for their membership dues?
Yes, I support it. I don't know why this became an issue during the last legislative session. It's a no-brainer. Yes, you want to pay dues into it, go for it.
Thank you very much. Give me a second here, waiting for our next question. Okay, here we go, I think. This question is for, it's for Rich, I believe. I'm sorry, I'm losing track of things here. Would you support legislation to create any type of voucher, tax credit, scholarship, education savings account, or other programs aimed at paying for students, including any subpopulation of students, to attend non-public K-12 schools, such as private or school or homeschool?
Joy, you didn't use your 3 minutes. If you would like to continue on to use some of your time to answer that question, I'm happy to yield your time back to you.
Oh, well, thank you. I am very conflicted with charter schools, and I am very conflicted about the fact that they're taking money away from public schools. The purpose of having a charter system is to be complementary to the public school system that we have. So the idea being that they provide a service that is different from what public schools are providing, or the idea being that they supplement what we have in certain communities. But that is not what we are seeing in praxis in Texas. What we are seeing is that they're taking money away from public education without taking any of the responsibilities that public education has. So they can refuse to admit children when public schools cannot. And that is one inequity out of many. So what I would do is I would place a moratorium on charter schools, because the way the system is implemented right now is not working. Or for instance, they can ask for donations when a lot of public schools cannot. So the system is not equitable when it comes to that. So I would not like to take money out of our public schools to give it to anybody else, because our public schools are underfunded as it is.
Thank you very much for that answer. Rich, a question for you.
Mervyn,
again,
if you can just hold off on that question, I'd like to address the two that Joy answered as well.
Please,
so
go right ahead.
I cannot imagine why anybody would have a problem with a payroll deduction for membership in ATPE or other school-related organizations. That's basically what Joy said. I completely agree with that. And Joy, I think the only reason why it happened is because of this right here. This shows the Republican domination in Texas for the last 30 years. All right. And the legislature, dominated by Republicans now for 20 years, has gone to extremes in implementing these extremist, these far right approaches to governance. And the governor hasn't done anything about it, and the governor has encouraged it. So I would say in response, I think that's the reason why. And until this changes right here, until we turn this to blue, and it's not just enough for I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate like Joy, okay? But it's not just the governor. It has to turn blue up and down the ticket. The Democrats have to win the House, they have to win the Senate, they have to win the governor's office, and they also have to win the lieutenant governor's office as well. When we do that, then we won't get these crazy ideas that are out of the blue from extremists on the far right. Vouchers. I don't think that we can improve Texas schools by implementing vouchers in the state. All right. All that does is take away funding for public schools, and I'm all about increasing funding for public schools. And I think that one of my responses to the ATPE questionnaire that involved what about money for public schools, or what are you going to do about that? I think what I said was, I said it's up to the teachers and the school districts to decide how the money gets implemented and used. It's my job to produce the money. And I think I said, if what I have to do is eat old newspapers and wait 24 hours to produce $100 bills, then I'll do it. Okay. That's my approach. So vouchers take away money from public schools. It's not a good way to improve our public education. I'm sorry. Okay. So Mervyn, now I'm sorry. I'm ready for my question.
Would you like to overrule? I can't bother, it's a weird question. Would you allow overruling a mask mandate by a local school district?
No. Would I, as governor, overrule? No. The answer to that is no. I think in my opening I talked about that. Authority is capable of being delegated down to the lowest governmental entity. Responsibility remains with the office of the governor, but the authority is delegated down to local governing authorities like school districts or municipalities. And unless a decision is made by a local governing authority that negatively affects or harms the health or safety or welfare of the public, then the state government has no business interfering with that local governmental decision. All right. So a mask mandate requiring children and teachers to wear masks in school by a school district, that does not harm the health or safety of the public at all. Okay, it is put in place to help the health and safety of the public, to protect the students and to protect the teachers. And so there is no purpose in the state government stepping in and overruling a decision that is designed to improve the health and safety of the government. So no, I would not as the governor. It's not the governor's responsibility when the local decision does not harm the health or safety of the students or the teachers. And in this case, that decision would only help the health and safety of the students and the teachers.
Thank you. Inocencio, questions rather similar in some ways, I guess. How much freedom should districts have to make decisions during disease outbreaks, such as requiring face coverings and immunizations or transitioning to remote instruction?
Okay. I was going to touch up on what Richard said, but you know what? Remember earlier I said that as governor, I would mandate vaccines. Well, if you mandate vaccines, you don't have to worry about masking. So if you mandate vaccines, masks will probably disappear because not too many people are going to be contracting that disease. And if it's another one that comes around, of course, that's why we have scientists and doctors and everybody else to go ahead and find the remedy. Of course, I believe that those people should be some of the highest paid people in the country because they're the ones that are keeping us alive. Now, Yeah, as far as like I said, if we mandate vaccines, there's no need for masking. So whatever the schools want to do, if they want a mask, great. If they don't want a mask, great. But it's up to the governor to mandate the vaccines.
Thank you very much. Joy, a question for you. What if any plans do you have to reform Robin Hood?
Whew, Robin Hood. I am a former reporter, Marvin, and so for 17 years, I went to court almost every year to listen to one district or another district suing the state. So Robin Hood, the challenge with Robin Hood is that we thought it was a good idea to take some money from some schools and give it to some other schools. I think there's no need for Robin Hood if we do state-based funding. So if we do a constitutional amendment and instead of having local governments take the taxes for schools, if you have a school district or a community where the housing values are very low, how can you tax enough to educate the children in that community? But if you do a statewide tax, and it's the same thing, it's just the same amount of money, but instead of being collected by local authorities, it could be collected by the state, it could be distributed equitably. And that's the challenge of Robin Hood. The challenge of Robin Hood is that it fails again when it comes to equity. And so my idea to provide equity is to get away from Robin Hood and to do a statewide tax that then the state distributes. And the only way to do that is with the spirit of equity.
Thank you very much. A question for Rich. What do you think about year-round schooling? Something like a quarter system?
Again, Mervyn, I'm going to go back to Joy's
Please.
question a little bit. I think that Robin Hood funding is a very difficult bear to grasp and to figure out what we're going to do with Robin Hood funding. But I think that what we have to do is we have to look at what is the root cause of Robin Hood funding. And I think that Joy is attacking that problem pretty well. My approach is just a little bit different than Joy's, but I'm certainly open to her approach. Okay. But I think that what we have to do is we have to find different sources of funding. And that's why one of the things I mentioned earlier on in one of the earlier questions was I'm ready to legalize the recreational use of marijuana, and I'm going to tax it. All right. And I'm going to take that money and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to pump it into education. And when it gets pumped into education, then we have more money that's being distributed out amongst the school districts. So the need for Robin Hood funding is decreased. All right. I don't know that it'll be enough to do away with Robin Hood funding, but it would certainly reduce the need for Robin Hood funding. Now, Mervyn, I'm sorry, my question.
Sure, I'll repeat the question for you. What do you think about year-round schooling, something like a quarter system?
Well, I'm going to listen to the educators. All right. If the educators sit back and they say, look, we can improve the performance of our students. We can produce, that sounds so impersonal, right? But we can produce students that have better skills, better knowledge that allow them to obtain gainful employment and earn a decent wage upon graduation, then I'm all for it. But because I don't know what the best solution would be, I would rely on the teachers to tell me. And if the educators basically got together and they said, look, we think we need to go to a quarter system, a year-round system, because it keeps the students engaged longer. They don't have what I'll call a deterioration in knowledge because of the gap over a reasonably lengthy summer. Then I would say, sure, let's do that. But again, I don't know. I would have to rely on people like Joy and other educators across the state to tell me what to do. And then once they tell me what they think is the best thing, then I'm going to execute on it, right? I'm going to make it happen. So that's my response to a year-round schooling. I don't go one way or the other, but I'm going to listen to what the educators like Joy have to say.
Thank you.
Could I follow up on that last
Please,
question?
go right ahead.
Okay, year-round schooling. I don't believe it's a good idea. For one, there's a lot of kids that don't like school. And there's a lot of teachers that want to get away from kids to recoup. So year-round, I don't think would work. Um, However, I would leave it up to the individual uh, students if they want to go year round, and if there's a teacher that wants to teach them year round, and they want to graduate early year round, I mean, by all means, let's provide funding for them. But I would think it'd be better if it was on a volunteer basis, if the teachers are willing and the students are willing, so they can graduate earlier. Hey, more power to them. I would back something like that up 100%. And like I said, I would leave it up to the individual school districts if they want to do it, and the individual students. So that's what I would do with that.
Could I interject here a little bit? Because there are several benefits to going to school year round. I went to college in Mexico, and when I went to school there, we did year round. So I graduated my 4-year degree. I graduated in 3 years. We went to school for 3 months, and then we had 3 weeks off. And that is a model that has several benefits. One is good for the teachers and good for the students because you're going full steam for 3 months and then you have 3 months off, 3 weeks off. You know, instead of waiting this lengthy period until December when everybody is ready to go on life support, you know. So that is one benefit. The other benefit is to the parents, because you don't need to be waiting, you know, and really stressing out about what are you going to do with your kids for 9 weeks during the summer. So that would put more women in the workforce, because instead of, you know, taking time off to be at home taking care of the kids, you would go straight to working, having the benefit that for 3 weeks you can figure something out. But the other thing is that it presents a challenge to the teachers, because a lot of teachers are so underpaid that during the summer they take extra jobs to make up for the difference. But if you go year round with a good salary, with a salary that says we value you, we really cherish you, instead of having to have a second job, they can actually take those 3 weeks for resting and, you know, for mental health and for physical health. So there are several benefits to it. And I'm sorry that I interjected when it was your turn to answer a question, Inocencio, but I just wanted to present that from my experience.
In a sense, I will be welcome to give you a couple of seconds of additional time if you'd like it about to speak on this topic.
Well, you know, there's always pros and cons. There's always good and bad, and that's gonna go on forever. But you know, like I said, when I'm governor, one day a month I will devote to the people, and if they got solutions, problems, situations, solutions, if they bring me solutions, I'm all ears. In fact, I got extra ears. But don't just present me with problems. You know, like I said, I'm easygoing. I like to hear from everybody. I like to associate with everybody. In fact, I went to a swap meet this past year, and I was advertising for governor. And they said, if you become governor, are you still going to come to the swap meets? I said, of course. Why would I not go to a swap meet? That's where people go. So I like hanging out with the people, and I'm one of them. So that's why I think I'm a great selection for governor, because I look out for everybody. I'm not just looking out for Hispanics or whites or blacks or anybody else. I want to make sure that everybody is treated with respect and dignity, and that everybody has a right to the rightful education that they deserve if they want it. Now, if they don't want it, well, that's up to them. I can't make them, you know, can't force people to one thing. But if they want it, it's available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now going into the last part of our presentation. 2-minute summary statements for each candidate. Again, Joy, if you please, would start us off. You have 2 minutes to, again, speak your final words to the audience.
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mervyn. Thank you for being the moderator, and thank you to all the other candidates. And to teachers out there in the state of Texas, I just want you to know that you have an ally in me, and that if I become your next governor, that I want to serve you. Service is something that I learned from my parents, and it's something that I don't take lightly. We deserve to be served. The current governor has forgotten that his job is to be a public servant. And if he's not serving the public, he needs to be out. So we've been very patient. We've given him 8 years, but we cannot wait any longer. It's time for change, and it's time for radical change. And I've been hearing a question that somebody said to me recently, and that question was, what would it take? What would it take to make radical change in Texas? What would it take? Perhaps a radical choice. And I am a radical choice. I'm the only woman running for governor in the Democratic ticket. I am the only person who is bicultural and bilingual. I was born in Mexico, and my father was an American. Therefore, I am an American and a Mexican. And because of that, that gives us negotiating power between the United States and Mexico. When Rich was talking about water, we can negotiate water with Mexico because it's something that we haven't done since 1944. We can improve the lives of teachers because you're in my heart, and because I value what you do, and because I see how important it is. The future of Texas is in your hands, and I want to support you as best as I can. And lastly, I'm going to say that I am doing this because I have 2 wonderful children who deserve the world, and we need to give it to them. So what would it take? It would take radical changes. And I encourage you to be radical and go out and vote.
Thank you very much. Rich, please, your turn, sir. 30 seconds. That's not 30 seconds. Excuse me, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Otherwise, I'd be talking really fast. So I want to reiterate again something that Joy said, and I'm going to emphasize this. I think that Democrats need to look for change, and I think that is required in order to beat the Republican nominee, whoever it is, and it's likely to be Abbott. Again, this needs to change to blue, okay? And I think that myself and I think that Joy Diaz can change this to blue. All right. I think we heard her say that, and I'm going to reiterate it as well. We need a different approach in the Democratic Party. We need to nominate a candidate that's going to be able to beat the Republican. All right. I think Joy can do it. I think I can do it. I don't think that Beto O'Rourke can do it because he's just got too much baggage. All right. So that's the first thing. Now, to get back to educators. All right. Educators, we got to find money, all right, that we can pump into the education system. That's critically important, all right? Whatever those resources are, I'm all for it. We need to find those. We need to restore local autonomy to decision-making down to the level of the school districts, so that the teachers in the school districts can decide what's best for the students, what's safest for the students, and implement that, and not have a governor that's going to come in and put his fat finger on their decisions and interfere with the experts, because the experts are the educators, the experts are the people in the school districts. They're the ones that know what's best for the students. So we need to emphasize that. We need to emphasize change in the Democratic Party. I think Joy represents that. I think I represent that, and I think that either she and I have a better chance of beating the Republicans than Beto O'Rourke does, and I would encourage Democratic voters to think that way when they go to the polls this year.
Thank you. Inocencio, please, it's your turn, sir.
Okay. Well, I'll just go back. I know Richard mentioned Joy and him would be a good selection. However, I think I'm the best. Nothing against you guys.
No, I understand.
But I think I would be the best because I am military, ex-military. I've traveled the world. I'm very versed in different businesses, different levels of communication. I can communicate. I can communicate with the president if he wants to talk to me. I can communicate with professors. I can communicate with actors and attorneys. I've even defended myself in court at one time or another. So I am well versed in life. And I am also, I speak Spanish. I understand it well. I read it. I don't write it as well, but I do read it. And I am fluent in it. Also, English. In fact, Spanish was my first language. They had to teach me in first grade to speak English. So, and that's another thing about education. They have gotten away, we as Mexicans, Indians, or whatever, uh, the American system has taken away our language. I think it's time we bring it back. I think that should be one of the requirements when you graduate high school, that you be fluent in Spanish because it's only going to help you. It's not going to hurt you any, and it's not that hard to learn. If I have to teach you, I'll teach you. I mean, there's nothing to it. In fact, like I said, I used to teach immigrants English. It's just as easy teaching English as it is teaching Spanish. I mean, it goes both ways. And me knowing both languages, I mean, I can see that it's real simple, but the way they teach it in school is not working. It won't work. You want to teach conversational Spanish, so you got to take a different approach to that. You got to teach it to where the kids will actually, they can learn something in the first day. They don't have to go through a whole semester and not understand or know anything. I mean, in one semester, they can start communicating. And the more they communicate in Spanish, Texas is majority Spanish, okay? And the thing is, people, you got to get along with us. I mean, I love everybody. And I mean, I've had, like I said, I've got a lot of friends from everywhere. I've had one donation in from Mr. Abbott's family. But anyhow, I think I'm the better choice. Like I said, I'm easy to get along with. I'll listen to anybody. I'll work with anybody. If I can help you, I'm here. I'm here to represent Texas. And I want to make Texas not only the best, I mean, we already say it's the best, but I want to make sure that our people are also the best. And we can only accomplish that by putting the money where we need to put it in education, in science, and math. We need to get up to, we need to be the state that everybody wants to be. And, you know, go from there. But I think everybody should vote for me. I'm the wild card, and I've always been a wild card anyway. So if you vote for me, I can always assure you that we're going to get along fine. Thank you.
I want to thank the candidates for their presentation. It's been most interesting and hopefully enlightening to our audience. I want to thank our audience for their participation and their presence tonight. In that case, we'll now end our town hall meeting. Thank everyone involved. Thank you all very much. Good night.